Okay, today we're going to go over probably the most busted MK bait deck. I say most, it's not great. No MK bait deck is that great at the moment. We start off against Draw Cycle, always probably the best matchup with MK bait, pretty free. Inferno always controlling, you can go quite aggressive, especially with a Scum in this deck, defend easily. Like already applying pressure in single with Inferno Dragon, there we go. Infantry on tower. I mean, he just can't defend it. Doesn't have air stuff. Gives up. You tend to get that quite a lot with this deck because you can take 2 towers pretty easily, and then they're just not going to play anymore. So nice, easy first game, nice and quick, and that's like in the top 200. So next one, bit giant double prince. Just more on deck. I just don't like it. It's stupid. Let's just play giant first play. Oh. Giant first play, what a surprise. Play princes behind it and a mega minion, so skill. In this case, prince opposite, so we block with the Skarmy because we know it can zap, then we can zap. And sure, we'll take a lot of damage, but we know it's definitely a better trade because we have this dual bait. Got the Skeleton King ability plus the Scobo, plus he can't defend both sides unless he has to spend another 3 or 4. And there we go. Sure, we took a lot of damage, but we can defend this push easily, especially with the Skarmy and Inferno. And then we've got this duodenum damage. I mean, tower down, easy. And we know he has to spend always at least 5 plus spells if he wants to take that tower. So it's really nice to try and save that little bit of health, especially when you know like they don't have a miner or anything, so they're going to have to spend either their spells or giant push. And so that's why we'll keep defending this tower. Sure, we can zap, but then we can Skeleton King a bit late, so we don't get many skellies. Here we have to do the late bats plus zap to take off the minions, and then we can just go for a Skarmy Inferno. He hasn't got the small spells in hand. Got all the bait cards, and just, play cards till the end of the game pretty much. You can't take both towers, not possible. We can just block stuff at the bridge. So, like, you see, you can use the ability while dual lane bait, and it's often just hard to defend. Kind of why Skeleton King's so broken. You just play stuff. Spam troops plus ability, and even if they have the elixir, they just don't have the best counters. So the next game against E-Giant, very, very tough matchup, so I actually put it in single, just so you get to see all of the stuff nice and slowly. Start with a scope at the back. I do like scope at the back, because then if they have NATO, you can essentially play something with it. And you can either try and stop the king activation by forcing into NATO the small troops off the tower or something like that. Or you can do something with the bats and then the Skeleton King also. So I think if you want a safe play, Scope with the back is quite underrated as a first play. And sometimes they'll even spell it, which works out too. So here we just want to take out the cannon that's mirrored, plus Skeleton King ability, knowing he'll be a giant, just trying to DPS it down. We don't really have any good E-Giant counters because he'll always NATO the Inferno. So the sort of goal is, if we're going to defend it with Inferno, do so when he doesn't have that NATO in cycle. So we go for a Skarmy. Sure, it will die, but the E-Giant will too. And, we're pretty even. Haven't taken too much damage. Down a few elixirs, but it should be alright. That was a really terrible bomber because we can go in, and especially utilizing the bats nicely. He hasn't got good bat counters, plus the fact that we have that bait, and then we can use the ability if necessary. And we'll have to use the Golden Knight ability, which is just stupid. I mean, what is that? Nonetheless, still works out. If he wants to E-Giant the bridge, since he has NATO, we'll probably have to go with an MK and or miner, something like that. And I think he actually ends up doing it. So skillful, wow, so well played. And so we can go for that MK early, because we know that, it does a bit of damage, a bit of DPS, plus an Inferno Dragon to take the rest of, because that would be a bit of a waste of a NATO for a few extra hits. And he'll mirror for the defense. And then we can go opposite lane, because we know that forces out a NATO for sure. He has no other way to defend it. And then we can try to take this E-Giant out as early as possible. So Skelly King the bridge, and then we have a second MK back in cycle, because it's still a pretty fast cycle deck. Especially with all these 3 elixir cards, and he's used his Earthquake. So now we know we have to go quite aggressive because one more E-Giant or Spell Cycle and he'll end up taking the tower. So you go in with the offensive Inferno because he'll have to Nado that. He probably should have logged that instead. But then he goes for that Nado, and then he doesn't have anything in hand for the bats. A good zap to get that Inferno on, and that's quite smart there, because we're definitely not defending that E-Giant on the right. We get the tower trade on the left, and then at that point, we're in a much better situation, plus we didn't lose, plus the opposite tower thing makes it a lot of an easier matchup. So we can go for a nice offensive Miner. We have the Inferno, so he has to go for his Nado. And now we know we're in chip damage range, because somehow that Inferno ended up getting a lot of damage. So we're basically just trying to get a few miners or Scobos on tower without losing our whole tower. And so we just keep going aggressive, forcing him to defend, a few bat hits there. And now we just need one undefended miner or a few other things. So we can actually attack in the opposite lane just to try and force him to defend. That's not even a play attempting to take tower, we're just forcing him to defend, and it helps us cycle to the Scobo and the mine, and that's a nice 3 crown. So I was, even against a hard counter, it's possible. Playing well, you can still win. And so the next game, went on a bit of a win streak here against Carl, good log bait player, and he happens to be playing Mortar Cycle, again, virtually impossible. So Log, Nado, Valk, High Spirit, so many great bait counters. And so, yeah, Scobo at the back, plus the bats, because, you know, we know with Mortar Cycle, he only has like, the offensive options of Mortar and Rocket, so it's quite safe to attack whenever we want to. And yeah, here we go, we can go for some offense, and we can go now with the bats, because if he Nado's there like he does, he has nothing to defend. So yes, he got a bit of damage on the right, however, certainly compensated for with a lot of early damage. And there, we know we'll take a few mortar hits, but it's much more important to get any damage possible, for example with that Scobo. So that was super nice, and he can't afford to defend that properly on the right. He misses his Nado, and there we go, the same thing again. Super quick GG's, taken 2 towers, made a few mistakes, sure, but really, really nice win. And this deck kind of seems strong. I think it's why I got the 16th finished in the GT with a few seasons ago. And then I was just testing it now, and it turns out to be very effective. So against Retire, and yeah, Mortar Bait, but without Minion Horde, so it's a pretty easy matchup, this. And so, he'll start off with the Spear Goblins, we can counter a Skelly King. And we can just use the ability, mainly to try and DPS his Skelly King, plus the Skellies from the ability won't sort of be attributed towards his ability, so we can defend it nicely with the bats. And so here we do have to MK, or we could have Skarmied, but we thought might as well play a bit of double lane pressure, get the damage there, and then defend with the Skelly King plus bats. This sort of matchup, if you can just defend in single, you should win quite easily, because you can just use the zap on the Spearies or bats, and defense is easy. You're always going to, again, control the game with Inferno, just like you do in the drill matchup, basically, because he can't kill it until it crosses. And so Scope at the back, just getting something so we can get some troops for the Skelly King. Quite an aggressive MK at the bridge as usual, nice predict on the Spear Goblins with that. And so here, he has to defend both lanes, and so he goes for a log plus fireball. We can attack with that miner and damage lead. You can see it just quite an easy matchup. You can go aggressive. That was a terrible mortar, to be honest, because every time you mortars, you just go MK bats and you upper load, and he has to defend. So yeah, I'm Thundering getting a load of value, as you can see. Still has to defend, so we can go aggressive, plus the zap, and yeah, we just need a little bit more damage, cycle some miners as well. And so, that was a good defense. Yeah, he's still going to take a lot of damage. We can defend quite easily, I'd say. Seems pretty easy. Dual lane, he has to use his log. We can get a nice zap, and then GG's. You just suffers from the same sort of issue whereby he doesn't have enough anti-spam troops, despite having Skelly King and all the bait himself. So next game against 3M Mirror, very, very tough, especially if he uses the Elixir Collector well. So we'll start off with the scope at the back, and yeah, Golden Knight, we go with Bats, so then it goes Royal Ghost and Heal Spirit, and we can just set up the Skeleton King for the ability. Here we go quite aggressive because we know we can pop the ability even though he'll 3M near his tower. And then he chooses to zap that, therefore we can attack with, we can defend with the Scummy and he just can't kill it. So it's quite lucky, but it worked out either way. And so we pretty much take tower here, but I think he also takes ours because we tried to defend, but then, yeah, with the zap as well. Quite bad defense actually, but it's alright. 2-tower game, still better than 1. Ideally you want the opposite towers because then you can use like the width and you're not always playing into the 2-3M lane. But that's okay, we use that Skelly King in the middle to get a bit of splash damage. Okay, it gets kind of tough when he goes for the musks at the back because we know he's going to mirror it. And then we're going to struggle to defend. So we set up on the back right, because that's the lane with a single musk, and then he mirrors another single musk into it. And we don't use the MK on the first set of musks, which is quite nice because we still have it. And so we mined that MK, that right musk, and then we defend with the Scummy because we have the Skelly King. So if he zaps the Scummy, the Skelly King ability plus Inferno will provide a lot of pressure for the 3 crown, and then we can use our MK. Now he's got to defend all the bait troops on the right, a Scobo, plus Bats, plus an MK, plus the further bait troops that we can now afford, and he has only 1 zap. So we can go in with a miner, got a few Skellies on tower, MK on tower, and that's a super, super nice game. Really using the bait advantage against a pretty tough matchup. And so yeah, it's really nice. Even the mirror zap, which he didn't use so well, it's just beautiful. And like normal MK bait, you don't have boosted Skelly King, so it's not quite as good. We'll have a look at this game against RG, because I feel like quite a common deck in all trophy ranges, so maybe we'll want to see it. We'll scope at the back, again, scope at the back. You can do it at the bridge also, I just think the back's more fun, you know. Have some fun in your life, a bit of spice. Scummy the back plus MK. So that's the thing, right? We know her ability, so you're setting up for the MK bridge, always the best play. And then we can do that, because he'll have to go for the Scummy. Fisherman, he gets King Tower, all ability anyways, because it's always value, got a bit of chip damage. And then he will attack and do quite a lot of damage, actually. We can defend though, Scummy plus Bats, and then he'll have to log. We do a nice Skelly King at bridge, because then we can pop the ability and he can't defend that. So it's quite a nice tower trade there. It works out very well. And we're actually up in damage, so he'll Skelly King the back. And we know he's going to do that, so we defend with the miner rather than the Scummy. Because then we can just set up troops at the back, try and control the Inferno Dragon doing well again. So we go for that Scummy plus Skelly King, because we'll get the ability and it won't take tower. Then Miner plus Zap Predict on the Skelly army, which was certainly accidental, but that's alright. So we can do the ability. He's only got 1 log, we can go for Scummy as well. 3 crown. Nice and easy game. And so again, we see this sort of player just struggling because we have so many bait troops. And so we'll have a look at this game against Drill, because another common top ladder deck. Probably want to see it. So let's go over the bridge, because we know he always plays Drill, and it's, yeah, let's go over the back and bridge the same. We actually zap the wall breakers because we don't want to take the damage if we don't have to, because if we just control to a single, it's a nice easy win. Then we Scummy because we don't want to take that guard's damage, and that was a really bad Scobo because we can't defend properly here, which doesn't normally happen in single. So we get a good zap actually to really reduce the damage, and we're only in a deficit of about 500. But normally you just want to defend, so it was a bit aggressive on our end, but it's all good. And so he has the Valk on the board, and then we can, again, the controlling Inferno, we can use it to attack, we can use it to defend, and we know they'll have to go wall breakers, so the bats at the back are quite a safe play. And with Inferno, often he's using his Fireball to defend, so he's not spell cycling you, so can't complain about that. Here we go for the MK plus Skami just to get that stuff for the Skelly King. We can go offensive with the Inferno Dragon. And the ability, sometimes you want to use an Inferno Dragon with the Skelly King rather than the MK, just switch it up a bit. And then the Zap, force out those. We can Skelly King the back here. Yep, nice predict on that. And we can take out the Fire Spirit with the bats. And so normally you don't want to take this much damage in this sort of matchup, but I think we're still controlling the game, so it should be okay. And then we can bats the back. He goes for the dual bomber, which seems very odd, plus that, so we can MK. And now we're just trying to get a little bit of damage because otherwise we're going to lose. MK splash, Skelly King splash. And okay, it's getting very, very tight. So we take out the wall breakers because the draw's a bit slower. Minor hits, and nice win. He's not too happy about that, but I wouldn't be either because it was quite intense. And so, let's see which other games were nice. This, again, we'll just show the quick 3 crown. I'm pretty sure it's one of those games where you just end up winning. So let's go with the back. He goes for hogs, so we can use the bait troops. Because he'll log that lane, and we can go for Skelly King ability. And he has the Earthquake, which is nice. Up on Elixir, so that's alright. And so we can just go for a minor. We don't need to support because he can defend the support cards easily. Bad hogs in the same lane when we have MK in hand, so we can go Inferno MK. And he can't actually afford to defend that. So Inferno taking almost all of his tower. And at this point, you can just defend the whole game because, yeah. Nice goblin defense, fully countering the queen. He uses the log though. And we know who either Fire Spirit or Earthquake, so we cover both bases with the bats plus Skami. Then we do the same thing, he's just given up because we can't win. And yeah, nice easy 3 crown. Nice and simple. And then we'll have a look at one other game. Quite bad players, but we'll just pick this one. Against a bit of Sparky bait. No one really wants to play Sparky bait, but that's okay. So we're finally got into the game. And it's against some pretty bad player, I'm pretty sure. So we can just start with a minor because you don't know what he's playing. He has Skami, so Skeleton King. Nice. And you can always do sort of baiting thing. We can go for an ability here, as we know we'll damage a lot of the Sparky, plus the Zap pretty much dead, and damage on the left. And he'll go with that minion horde, so we can defensive Scobo to take out that Sparky plus the minion horde, and just take a little bit of damage from those minions. And then essentially, you know, about even elixir, a lot of chip on the left. So we'll always go for that Skami plus the Skeleton King. And then we have ability ready, so we can utilize that. Go for a minor, I don't know how it looked on the minor, very odd. Go for the Zap though, and that's dead Sparky. So we choose not to defend here, because we actually can't. We know who Zap, we'll know who go for the arrows though, so we go Skami plus ability, and we win. Nice, easy 3 crown, mainly because the opponent was quite aggressive. But you can see how a lot of the games, you just win. This game, though, was a bit tighter. Final one. Mortar bait, not the best matchup with the minion horde also. But we'll go for a Scobo up top, and then we can just defend with MK. We don't know what version he's playing yet, so it's always just safe. You can go with bats. Go with the minor also. Zap the minion horde. And then he chooses to minor, so we can just Skami. Not taking damage there, nice. And so at this point you can just sort of defend, wait till double where you can really apply pressure. So knowing he'll log on the left, we can go for Skelly King, get that ability down. Quite ineffective, but it was okay. Take a bit of the Dark Gob health, apply some pressure, and then, yeah, we can just wait, see what he does. He'll cannon cut plus minion horde. So this, we have to defend with a nice World-Time Zap plus bats. And then we can go a little bit aggressive, but we're not in a great spot. Maybe that was a good play by him, the pressure. So we can start with the Skelly King at the back, then MK the back. I don't like to do it, but in this sort of matchup, in this situation where you're down a lot, it's necessary. Then we just take out the Dark Gob, snipe the cannon cart also, and then we can start these MK the back pushes now, and we can try and do something with that. And so we go for this sort of first push with the Inf D plus Skeletons to try and force out the Dark Goblin. Then the secondary push with the MK and the Mine and the Skelly King ability and the Skelly Swarm. Very effective. Now we're back in the game actually. So we go in, and this Miner, we actually, knowing he'll mortar, we can use it to tank some of the mortar hits, which is quite nice. And then he tries to predict, ineffective. So we go in with a nice big push. Bit of damage, nice zap, and that's game. So that was a nice clutch up actually. Okay opponents, and then I think we ended up winning another, and that puts us in 22nd. So hope you